Good morning. Well, it is good to be back home. We made it back to Oklahoma last night. Not too late. We got home about 5 p.m. from Branson. In case you didn't know, we've been in Branson the whole last week for my daughter's national dance competition. And good news is they won. So their amazing dance company at Dove Dance Studio won nationals with their I mean, I don't even know how to describe it. It's a powerful performance called Prince of Egypt. And it tells the story of Moses leading the people of Israel out of bondage across the Red Sea. And man, big congrats to Dove Dance Company for their big win over the weekend. They won this trophy that's like as tall as I am. So very, very proud of my daughter and her whole dance company winning nationals. And of course, we spent a few extra days up in Branson just as a little family vacation. And now it's back home, hitting the ground running. So I had to process for a minute that yesterday was actually Sunday, and there will be no break. We're going to continue on. There's no weekend coming up. It is officially Monday morning. But I'm glad. I am excited about this upcoming week. And tonight, we have our big volunteer meeting at Great Faith Church on Northwest Expressway, 6:30 p.m. And you're all invited out. So come out if you want to be a part of the campaign. Tonight is a great way to get involved. And I've had so many other people reaching out. We've got a whole cadre of digital warriors, keyboard warriors who are helping us on the social media front. And there's other ways to get involved as well. Of course, we have our donation link up and going, so you can now give. And let's see what else. We have the upcoming GOP Boots and Bling event coming up on the 24th. I'll be speaking there. And the big one, though, right now is the volunteer meeting tonight. So that is 6:30 p.m., Great Faith Church, Northwest Expressway. Really looking forward to that. But we are back here from Branson and ready to go. So, of course, the campaign is rolling strong. I've got speaking events and meetings all across the state. And then, of course, coming up September 6th is our big Oklahoma Rising event that's going to happen in Chickasha. We've got great volunteers organized and on the ground rolling in Chickasha. So looking forward to that event coming up. And man, what a rain, huh? What a rain over the weekend. Praying for all of the people that might be impacted by the rain and the flooding here in Oklahoma City. Lots of talk about there as far as what's happening around the globe. I mean, it really global moisture in the form of rain that is very destructive in some areas. We, of course, have had a very wet year. It's been great that we're out of a drought. That's been a blessing. But then the flooding has been pretty destructive. So lots of questions around that. Of course, we had the recent, I don't know if you saw the report of David Payne talking about the weather, and he kind of casually mentions this military shaft that's being released in the air. And yeah, we'll take a look at this.
It's folks. This will move to the metro between 6 and 7 o'clock this evening. And I also want to point out this big area of blue, that's what we call military chaff. And the military releases some things in the atmosphere. I know, down near Fort Sill, that's been riding north and east, and the radar is picking that up right there. And then look at the cold front there. Right into the Cherokee trucks.
Well, so evidently, according to Grok, okay, I did a little quick search here, but it is a radar countermeasure consisting of small, thin strips of aluminum, metallized glass fibers, or other reflective materials. And when released into the atmosphere, it forms a cloud that reflects radar signals. It creates false targets to confuse or distract enemy radar systems. and helps protect military assets like aircraft or ships by obscuring their true location or creating diversions. And this has actually been used since World War II, and kind of a standard tool in the toolbox for electronic warfare. That's interesting. Lots of questions, of course, around cloud seeding, and was cloud seeding, did it contribute in any way to the flooding that we saw in Texas, that we've seen here in Oklahoma? That was my first thought when I saw this mass of chaff on the radar that David Payne mentioned there. Was that in any way responsible for the massive flooding we saw at the same time, ironically? I don't know. I've been doing a lot of research on the cloud seeding, and I'm very interested in what's happening in our Oklahoma skies. Of course, the conversation around chemtrails is really, I believe, ramping up. In the last year, we saw several moves to ban chemtrails in different states. Florida was successful, I believe. I don't know if it was Texas. I know Texas, there was an effort to do that. Here in Oklahoma, there was an effort to do that. Senator Sakiari ran a bill to ban chemtrails in the state. So I believe we'll see more of that. And my position on it has been, hey, listen, I know there's still a lot of questions around chemtrails. That I've listened to some people that I believe in and I trust, and they have said they have not seen any credible evidence of to verify we'll just use conspiracy for now, that chemicals, toxins are released in the atmosphere with the intent, the malicious intent of harming people on the ground. Now, again, people who believe this, when they hear anybody counter that or question that, then they're going to dismiss them. But all of us should absolutely be in pursuit of the truth. And I have no agenda except that I prioritize health. I don't want any toxins over my skies, or filtering down, impacting my health or my family's health. So if it's at all happening, it needs to be banned. I believe that. But then there is a difference between what we're seeing, if this is true, what is being reported about the chaff, the military chaff, that it is a reflective agent in the sky to obscure aircraft and protect assets. Still, there's a question of is there any health impact on the people if this does make it to the ground? But you have that solar modification technology that is a reflective agent that's put into the skies. Then you have the chemtrail idea of the toxins that's being released, usually with the intent of poisoning the masses. And then you have the idea of, not the idea, but the method of cloud seeding. And I believe it's sodium chloride. No, not sodium chloride. Sodium iodide that is released in the air that allows water droplets to bind to it and then increase the capacity to form rain or snow. And there's been a couple of good podcasts recently that have had the founders of Rainmaker founder of Rainmaker, and he's offered some great insights. He seems like a very trustworthy man who is a professed believer in Jesus and Christian. I know that doesn't cover everything, but you can usually get a sense of when someone's telling the truth. And we're going to talk about that today, of this idea of skepticism towards authorities and truth telling. It's maybe one of our biggest dilemmas when it comes to politics, is who do you trust and how do you know they're trustworthy? But when it comes to cloud seeding, I do not think that cloud seeding contributed to the floods. I think we're just having a very wet year, and sometimes you just have wetter years than other. And I know with all of the skepticism around government, I'm right there with you on that. There is that default reflex to say, no, something bigger is happening here. And I always leave room for that possibility. But you also have to leave room for the possibility that it's just that there may be nothing behind it. And you don't want to be chasing ghosts. You don't want to be running around deceiving yourself. I don't want to deceive myself and try to read something. I mean, if you're looking for a ghost, then every shadow you see is going to confirm your presupposition that ghost exists and that your house is haunted. If you believe your house is haunted, you're going to look for something to validate that. So you have to be careful not to deceive yourself, while at the same time not trusting everything. Harold says, I agree. I don't believe the floods were a direct result of cloud seeding. When you look at this technology, I mean, and again, I'm no expert on this, but it seems like they are not able to produce mass flooding. And I know there are those that would contest that, but based on the interviews I've listened to and the stuff I've read, it's they have not been able to master, first of all, location. They cannot cause it to rain in a direct location. I mean, they have to put it in the air and then let the cloud drift and cover hundreds of square miles that it would target somewhere in there. So with the Texas situation, I believe it was I believe it was already that it happened a couple of days before. And I know that that can seem naive to a lot of people. So I leave room for doubt and skepticism and questioning the government and all of the things that they may not be telling us. Okay, for sure. It just, as it seems to me that cloud seeding was not the cause of all of the flooding we're seeing. But I do have suspicions, and I leave room for that skepticism there. So, speaking of skepticism, nice little time to segue into the Epstein debacle. Now, very interesting situation here with which here's what I want to highlight. Trump, of course, has come out and said that he does not believe the Epstein list needs to be released. Hey, we need to move on. Nobody cares about that. I believe that was a very, just dumb statement. Love Trump, and we'll explore this move to possibly not release the Epstein files, but to say that no one cares about Epstein was very detached from his base, because here's what we know, that MAGA people are conservatives, and conservatives to a large degree are also Christians who have a devotion to truth and righteousness above any personality. And it's refreshing for me to see this pushback against Trump, not because of Trump, but because of a commitment to righteousness. And I have just very much, it's been refreshing for me to see people say, you know what? If you're not going to stand for truth, then we cannot remain loyal. We will detach ourselves from you. And this has been very indicative, I believe, of where conservatives are in the nation and in the state, even, of saying there is something greater than any one individual, and that is truth, and that is righteousness. And so I'm going to continue watching this. I'm going to be careful with any opinions connected to this, because right now it's very easy for people to grab a statement you make and run with it. But there's a lot of thoughts surrounding this that I don't believe anybody has a solid hold on this situation. So I'm not going to dig into all of that. I don't cover a lot of these national stories. And it's not because I'm not interested. And it's not because I'm not informed. It's because, number one, it's being covered on so many other outlets. Number two, I want to prioritize local and what's happening here in the state. And yes, that's important. But like I said in a recent post on X that while I believe that's important, and I believe Trump's position on this is important, and I believe every pedophile involved in that needs to be hung, what we also need to focus on is DHS, what's happening here in the state, the systemic corruption that is allowing children in the state of Oklahoma to be abused currently. And while Epstein was a tragic, horrendous case, Epstein Island is not active currently. Epstein himself, most believe, I believe he's dead. How he died was a big question. But currently here in the state of Oklahoma, we have a major situation on our hands that must be addressed through DHS. I recently released the new show that I've been working on. I'm really excited about, called Drill Baby Drill. And I'm like, part of me saying, Trump, don't kill everything right now with some stupid move, because, I'm using Drill Baby Drill. And here's I want to give you a little preview to the show. It's my intro, my newly revised intro. I did release it the other day, and it was a legislative review. The one I released the other day was actually a prototype. It was a test run, but it was so good, I had to go ahead and release it. So I had 4 investigative journalists on, and it was such a great conversation. We dug into the legislation of this past legislative session, and it's such a good conversation. I went ahead and released it as episode 1 of Drill Baby Drill. Since then, I revised the intro a bit. I may continue to revise it. And then I'm going to release the next one, which focuses on DHS. It'll be tonight. The plan is at 6 p.m. Okay. So tonight at 6 p.m., I'm going to release that. Julie, you're asking, where can I find it? You can find it right here on, I say right here, if you're watching this on YouTube or Facebook or X, I'll post the link on all of that. But the show will be posted on, you can look for Drill Baby Drill on YouTube and find it there. But here's the intro to Drill Baby Drill.
It's time to Drill Baby Drill. Baby Drill.
Him, as he finishes up his second term, he's
And let's get going. It's time to Drill Baby Drill.
All right, so it's pretty fun. I'm having a ball with it and talking to a panel of experts, a panel of guests that are drilling down on particular issues. The one we're focusing on that we just recorded is DHS. And like I've been saying, the atrocities that were committed on Epstein Island, very serious, but even just as serious is what's happening currently in our state with our own state-funded system that is upside down, and it must be corrected. And I've been saying, when elected to governor, this will change in Oklahoma. I will not tolerate what we currently have that is allowing the abuse of children in our state. It fires me up. I'm sick by it. And I promise you, this is something that day one, it will change. And I hate to make those day one statements, right? We saw Trump say day one, the Ukraine-Russia war would end, and he's still working on that. But this is something that needs new leadership, needs entirely new structure. Some are saying, and I would agree, that it may call for the dismantling of the entire system to be rethought and rebuilt in a different form. But one of the points that was made by one of my guests, the author of Visit on Substack, Katie, she said, This is a relatively new system, DHS is. And of course, we've all grown up with it and assumed, hey, this has always been around, but it's actually relatively new. And this whole concept of child welfare services provided by the state is a relatively new concept. So this is something that we could live without, but it would require you and I and the church to step up and fill the void and actually do what is our duty to do. Karen brings up Clayton Woolley, just turned 13. He was kidnapped by DHS 8 years ago. And so glad you brought that up, Karen. I think this highlights, this is a case where there were so many, I almost said missteps by the state, but I hate to even give them that grace, calling it a misstep. My big issue with the Clayton Woolley case is not that there's suspicion around a family. Hey, let's do our due diligence. A baby died in someone's custody. If there's questions around that, then we need to investigate it. But the family was tried in court and found not guilty. But in spite of the not guilty verdict, DHS said, still there's suspicion around this. We call it a preponderance of evidence. So we're not going to allow the older brother, who was a toddler at the time, now 13, like Karen pointed out, we're not going to allow him to return back to his family because we don't think they're safe. Well, guess what? You don't get to make that decision based on what you think. This is why we have a jury of your peers. Okay? If there was a crime committed, let's try it before a jury of your peers. If you're found not guilty, if there is not enough evidence to convict you, then that child needs to be returned. The fact that he has not been returned yet, this is a huge indictment on the state of Oklahoma. I don't understand. I know that Governor Stitt's father has been very involved. John Stitt, very involved in this case, has been calling out the corruption there. And why Governor Stitt has not intervened and done something here, I don't understand. But here's the thing. If this family did what they were accused of doing, they need to be in prison. They were tried and found not guilty. So regardless of what you think, we need to honor the judicial process. And I don't think that they're guilty. I'm not assuming that at all or suggesting that. But even if you thought they were guilty, well, we've taken them through the judicial process, found not guilty. The child needs to be returned back to their family, back to his family. So this is just one of hundreds, if not thousands, of testimonies. It blows my mind every time I hear what's happening in the state with this overreach, this assumption by the government that they can just step into a family's life and just take a child. Again, this is connected to something, to the issue of private property with eminent domain, a growing concern across the state, where the government also stepping in and just taking land because they decided to. Yeah, there is some massive reform that has to happen in the state of Oklahoma to protect our God-given rights. And I don't know, I get fired up about it. I think you can tell that. And I think that's what we need in leadership, is someone who is angry about it. Not just slightly concerned. No, but this makes me very upset, to the point that I want to go in and smash things. Of course, I'm not talking bring a literal hammer in and break anything. I'm not talking about anything criminal, but I'm talking about in a leadership position to come in and dismantle. The governor's appointment to DHS is such a critical appointment. And we need to find someone who will be in that position. That's where I would start, is we need to appoint someone as head of DHS who's just as angry and will not tolerate and will not step into this position and then ask, what do I do? Because that's what often happens. And then the staff and the council around them begins to instruct them about, okay, this is the way we do things. That's why you have so many people elected into positions, whether it's governor or a state legislator or an appointee to an agency. They now step into this role, and those around them, the advisors and the staff, those who have been there long before them, begin to instruct them. This is the way we do things here. And so regardless of what you thought you were going to do, no, we don't do that here. We got to have somebody with backbone and true conviction, where you may need to come in and just fire everybody so you're not influenced that way. Okay, we're starting from scratch. And this is not, government jobs are government jobs. And it does not mean you have lifetime security. So if we need to change things, then we need to change things. Someone needs to come in ready and willing to fire people, to lay them off, to restructure and say, okay, we're not doing it the way we've been doing it. It's not working. So that's where I would start with DHS. We need to get a bulldog at the head of it who's willing to come in and restructure things, who has the priority of the children in their mind, not the agency. No agency is beyond restructuring. Okay, we need to have someone who's willing to go in there and say, I'm willing to burn this whole thing down and start over if we have to. We're not going to keep on violating people's rights. So I'll tell you what, it stirs me up, and that's, I believe, where we got to start. Yes, Epstein, that case is important. But my mind is on something else. My mind is actually on things happening in the state of Oklahoma that we could fix today, where children currently are being abused. So I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time thinking about Epstein and Trump. I'm going to pray. I'm going to pray for them. I'm going to stay informed. But there's something happening in our own backyard that we better be looking at. You know, it's interesting. Good morning, John. Good to see you, sir. When politics, and I know this, I've been through this, and I'm going and will go through it. But it's interesting when you are accused of something. And I consider this with Trump. I consider this. It's kind of like with the cloud seeding that we were just talking about. It's hard for people to have completely unbiased opinions. And most of the time, all of us are basing our decisions about politics on opinions that have been shaped and influenced by the media. And it's very hard now to discover the truth. None of us know exactly what happened on Epstein's Island. And that's, I believe, why we want the list released, right? I believe we need the list released. But even with the list released, there's going to be a lot of assumptions made about the people on the list. And this is an area where I could say I could understand Trump's reasoning, though I'm not saying I entirely agree with it. I could understand one of the points he made was there's a lot of people on the list, and just because they're on that list does not mean that they had any engagement in the sexual pedophilia that happened on the island. And if that's true, if this list includes other business relationships, which there's still questions if you're willing to do business with a monster like Epstein, but I actually believe that Trump did not go to Epstein's Island. I don't like the fact that he has video of him with him, and everybody knows Trump was a playboy. Hopefully those days are long behind him. And I don't agree with the life he lived, the lifestyle he lived. At the same time, I understand, thank God for grace that's covered my sins of the past. And I'm not the same person today that I was 10, 15, 20 years ago. So I understand the grace of God. However, the accusation of pedophilia, of violating children in that way, even if that's long in the past, there's still consequences for your actions. So there's that to consider as well. But if it is true that what Trump is saying about the Epstein list, that there may be names on that list that may have a business relationship with Epstein, but were not associated with the island or the pedophilia and all these kinds of things, then it would be concerning, because people will jump to conclusions and burn people at the stake based on assumptions. And that's what happens in politics. I'm seeing it personally. There's accusations circulating about me. And I understand that when you get into politics, you understand that your name is going to be smeared. There's going to be accusations thrown out there. It doesn't have to be true. And this is what consultants know. This is what political opponents know, is it doesn't have to be true. Just throw out an accusation, circulate it somehow, put the seed of question in people's minds about someone else, about your political opponent, get them on their heels, and they're going to spend their days and their resources defending themselves rather than advancing their campaign. It's just a typical political strategy that unfortunately conservatives are still using. And so, even while there's accusations swirling about right now about me, that I'm going to talk about at another point. I don't want to devote this whole time this morning to it, but those accusations are for me, they're heartbreaking, because they are, I value my name. The Bible says that your name is more precious than silver. And I've always valued my name and my reputation, because my reputation is connected to the reputation of Jesus. I do consider myself an ambassador of the Lord, which is what the Bible calls us. And so I in no way want to have any of my wrongdoings throw mud on the name of Jesus. That is my number one priority. But also, I want to have favor with God and men. And, I want to live an integrous life. I want to live uprightly. And it doesn't mean I always have, but that is my pursuit. So beyond politics, beyond business, beyond all of these things, I stand before God accountable to Him. And I understand that. And that's how I live my life. So when your integrity, when your name is smeared, and that's also what you value, you have to give that to God, because I could lose sleep at night. I do not lose sleep at night, because I know God is my defender. I know that I'm living uprightly, and I'm not concerned about accusations, because the truth will be known. And where I've made mistakes, I'll readily admit it and point to the grace of God as a result. But, it's hard whenever there are accusations made about you, and knowing how the whole thing plays out. I can understand Trump's hesitation of releasing this list, because people jump on things before they know all the facts and make emotional decisions. Politics is all about emotional decisions. Usually who's elected is the most, it all comes down to name recognition. It comes down to likability. That if you make one great speech, you resonate with people with one thing you say, and suddenly they want to make you king. Shouldn't be that way, but that's the way it is. It's a very emotional game, and people play on people's emotions. I try not to do that. I try not to play on people's emotions, just to present myself, what I believe, what I will fight for. I'm not going to spend time focusing on my opponents. Let them run their race. If they want to sling mud, that's up to them. I'm going to focus on the battle at hand, the issues at hand. But I know how this political game works, and I know this is why Trump is hesitant in releasing the list. At the same time, I believe it's important to release it, because it's one of the promises he made. And we want to hold him to his word, but also we want to know who is involved and who's being protected, who actually violated children And how deep does this go? How much is the CIA involved? And all of the three-letter agencies? We need to know who's involved and how deep this thing goes. So I think we must release the list. However, let me just bring it back around. Remember that right here in the state of Oklahoma, we have children being abused. We have trauma happening from children being in the system until they age out. We have judges, corrupt judges that need to be taken out. I'm not saying literally, I'm saying removed from office. Okay. So that's where my focus is right here in our own backyard, the things that must change. Yeah. But it is a nasty thing when you are accused of things. And I hope that anyone that's innocent, whose name may be on that list, is protected. I hope they are, if they're truly innocent. And I hope if they're guilty, and they're guilty of abusing young girls and boys, that they're dealt with, that justice is applied. So praise God. Ultimately, we must trust him. We must pray, and we must focus on what we can actually change. That's what I'm doing today. I'm going to spend my day focusing not on Epstein, not on Trump. My day will not be spent on that. My day will be spent on how we can reform the state, how we can connect in our own backyard. I'm going to be focusing on September 6th, our big event in Chickasha. Tonight, I have our big volunteer meeting, 6:30 p.m., Great Faith Church, Northwest Expressway. They've been gracious about opening up their church for us to meet there, and we'll have a volunteer event. Of course, we've just got the donation link set up, and you can now donate to the campaign. Let me just see if I can post that for you guys. If I should have had that ready, but let me see here. Just if you guys want to give to the campaign, I'm speaking on the 24th at the Boots and Bling event, the GOP Boots and Bling event, and excited about that. It's $1,000 to speak there. Crazy, but also worth it. And so the first amount of money that's been given is going to go towards that. We want to be really transparent and let people know exactly where the money is going. We're not trying to just raise millions of dollars. We're just trying to raise what we need to do this campaign. There's the link for you. Just posted that in the comments there. So you guys can click that link and give whatever is on your heart to give. But the first $1,000 just speak for 3 minutes, $1,000. So that's why we have decided we're going to open this up, let people be a part and help us cover the cost so we can run this campaign like it needs to be run. But we do have shirts. We had a lot of requests for the Jake Merrick for Governor shirts. So we're getting those printed up and ready to go. But there's so many other ways you can be a part. We have some keyboard warriors. If you're proficient on social media or the digital outlets, we could use you as well. And then if you want to door knock, we have lots of people signing up for door knocking to go out and just go door to door, greet people, say, hey, we're here representing Jake Merrick for Governor. Here's his positions. And it's nice and easy. We give you all the instructions. So there's no fear involved. Just a little bit of walking. But hey, we could all use some more walking, right? So you can sign up to be one of those. The biggest thing, man, if you could align with us in prayer and really cover this campaign. I'm praying for cultural reform in the state of Oklahoma. Yes, we're running this campaign to win. And like I said, I want to see reform in agencies like DHS, agencies like the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority. We need massive reform in the state of Oklahoma. I want to see taxes cut and ended. I'd love to see property tax completely ended. So there's some big things I want to see accomplished here in the state of Oklahoma. We need to improve education, on and on and on. But I forgot where I was going with that thought. Sorry about that. there's ways you can get involved and help. I just saw Karen's post and distracted me because you said that they Chris and Stephanie Davis have yard signs, and it's amazing. Thank you guys, Chris and Stephanie Davis, and everybody out there who's been independently printing and distributing yard signs. I learned about some of these groups. I'm like, wow. I mean, over in Watanga, they're printing bumper stickers, and have another amazing supporter that's printing buttons and handing out buttons, and Chris and Stephanie Davis yard signs. So the support has been tremendous, and so appreciate all of you guys. I just remembered tomorrow, I want to bring your attention to this. Tomorrow, I'm going to do a town hall, an online town hall with Justin Easley with Drive for 47. Love the group. Great group online. You can go on Facebook and look up Drive for 47, because tomorrow I'm going to do an online town hall with him, sit down with him. He'll ask me some questions. We'll talk about what's happening in the state of Oklahoma and my vision for change here. So don't miss that tomorrow. But tonight, volunteer meeting, Great Faith Church, 6:30 p.m. And also remember, also tonight, if you're not at the volunteer meeting, but you want to catch the next episode of Drill Baby Drill, I'm going to release that tonight at 6 p.m. Here we go. I'm going to give you another preview of the show. Maybe I won't. Where did it go?
It's time to drill, baby, drill. Baby drill. Him as he finishes up his second term. And let's get going. It's time to drill, baby, drill.
That's what we do on the show, is we dig deep, drill down, uncover corruption, and discover real solutions. So that's what we're going to do, is sit down with a panel of experts, and we discuss DHS in detail and some amazing stories that they tell, personal experiences of how their constitutional rights were violated by DHS here in the state of Oklahoma. And so you don't want to miss this next episode. Of course, this is just part one. I have part two coming out later, and we may just stay on this topic for a little bit. There's other topics to get to, like immigration, like turnpike, like data centers, like green energy. I mean, so many things we have to talk about in the state of Oklahoma, but we're going to continue doing that on Drill Baby Drill, and all the way through this campaign. Of course, we'll be talking about it, but so appreciate all of you tuning in this morning. I intended to just keep this short, but now I see I'm almost at 43 minutes, and I'm going to hop off here, but God bless you guys. Remember tonight, Great Faith Church, 6:30 p.m. on Northwest Expressway. We're going to have our next volunteer meeting, and then we have some others that we're planning for Tulsa, for Norman, and around the state. So those are coming up too. But hey, you guys be blessed, and I'll see you next time.